Okay, colleagues, and hopefully we're live. Hello and welcome back. What I wanted to do today is obviously we're going to have seminars in a bit, but I wanted to take this opportunity to talk to the course as a whole, to every student in the course as a whole, right? And discuss some of the general issues. Not to mention that I'm sure that some of the first year students who have just completed the prerequisite for this course, which is the Introduction to Social and Political Philosophy, I am sure that some of those will also be interested to hear what I have to say. Mm. Now, the general idea is, again, I want to broadly give a rundown of what we're going to do in the course and what is my thinking, about the course in general. Anyway, let me start somewhere. So the course is called Introduction to Modern Political Thought, and we are continuing from last academic year, 2019, the year before the quarantine, right? When we already had Introduction to Social and Political Philosophy with all of you. And this is in many ways very opportune. This is very, very nice, very good, very productive. I'm very happy that we already had a chance last year to go over all the major topics in political philosophy, broadly speaking, from Plato to Foucault, right? And so that you have a general feel, a general overview, right? A general background in political philosophy. Now, this year, as you all know, we are going to focus on six thinkers. These six thinkers: Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, John Stuart Mill, Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, and Karl Marx. And of course, immediately, maybe I should say this, just as a reminder, for the exam, you're going to need to choose three particular thinkers. You're going to need to focus especially on those three particular thinkers. And so basically, the way I plan to structure the course is that our first 6 lectures and our first 6 seminars are going to be, we're going to go over every individual thinker in this particular order. Again, so first Hobbes, then Locke, then Rousseau, then Mill, then Hegel, and Marx. And then what we're going to do is, by the end of seminar number 6, I will expect everyone to have made up their minds, to have made a particular choice. First priority, second priority, third priority thinker. And basically, so it's like, roughly speaking, by the end of January, we need to finish the overview. And then February, you spend on thinker number 1. March, you spend on thinker number 2. And April, you spend on thinker number 3. And this is how we're going to prepare. And I suppose, well, might as well say this right now, what we're going to look for, or like in general, the ultimate goal of this course, the ultimate overriding goal of a course like this, is to answer really important and prescient questions. And of course, I gave you the rundown last year. I'm not sure if I should repeat this now, but political philosophers have this interesting way of looking at their own subject. We think that political philosophy is the most important discipline ever. And those of you who listened to my rambling on Saturday, I've mentioned how there's a certain objective measure, objective mathematical measure, by which the human brain is the most complicated object in the universe. This is, again, I think in terms of Kolmogorov complexity, the current thinking is that indeed the human brain is more complex than the neutron stars, or something like that, right? Or galaxies. But then you would imagine, so if we talk about human brain, so neurophysiology and psychology would be the disciplines, but then an even bigger, an even higher level of complexity would have to be social and political theory, because you aren't just talking about an individual complicated brain, you are talking about a collection of brains interacting with each other. And so by this measure, when I teach my course in philosophy of science, I talk about this unified picture of the universe, from protons to presidents and from electrons to elections. So if you want, we go from the simplest things, and this is, by the way, a quote from John Searle. We go from the simplest things, maybe quarks, or hypothetical parts of which quarks are made of, preons. We go from preons to precedents, we go to ultimately international relations. And although the name of the course is Modern Political Theory, of course we will be talking constantly about international relations, which is your area of specialization. So I hope you're looking forward to that. I mean, I don't have to explain the relevance and the importance of philosophers like Thomas Hobbes for the study of international relations. Anyway, so let me go back to my slide. So the ultimate goal is, of course, to answer important questions. Again, questions about the relationship between individual and society. Questions about the nature of political obligation, for example. Also, questions about the purpose of society, the purpose of human beings living together. What makes society possible? What makes authority legitimate? These kinds of questions. Then, later down the line, of course, we're going to talk in this course, and you will be talking in other courses as well, about relationship between societies, so the politics, the political philosophy of the international arena, and we will have something to say about that this year as well. So the ultimate goal, I think, of a course like this is to answer really important questions. And notice, you can be a human being and not worry about your favorite interpretation of quantum mechanics or favorite dark matter candidate, again, something I rambled about on Saturday. But it seems kind of impossible to be a decent human being and not to ask yourself questions of ethics and politics. And again, I remind you that I view ethics and politics as, broadly speaking, continuous with one another, right? And so it's like, if you do not think for yourself, others think for you. Again, Socrates, potentially you could say the founder of our discipline, one of the founders of our discipline, Socrates very famously said to the Athenians, the unexamined life is not worth living for a human being. If you do not think about your life, if you do not ask questions and give your own answers to these questions, right, you might as well be dead, because you're not living your own life, you're living out just somebody else's blueprint. And this seems to be deeply dissatisfying. It seems that in order to be a proper human being, and be properly happy as a human being, there needs to be this element of autonomy. Autonomy coming from the Greek word, two Greek words, meaning self-law, right? Human beings giving laws unto themselves, right? Anyway, so obviously this is a contentious position. Everything is contentious and controversial in philosophy. I don't have to tell you that. But this is, one particular starting point. So this is the ultimate goal. But I suppose a lesser goal, but also an important goal, is not just to answer these important questions, but also to develop your independent skills of critical thinking. So, and these are the two, I would say, the more important and the somewhat less important, but the ultimate intangible goals, the metaphysical goals of taking a course like this. But these two goals are not quantifiable in any sense, right? It's, what counts as the right question? What counts as the right answer to the questions of politics? We don't know. We're debating. For more than 2,000 years, political philosophers have debated these issues, and have we made some progress? Well, I personally think yes, we have, but, some people disagree. If you open your textbook, you will see a whole variety of different positions. So these goals are somewhat intangible. They're hard to quantify. They're hard to assess. This is what we're trying to do, but it's hard for us to know whether we're doing well in this course or not. And especially it's going to be hard for the administration, which allows us to pursue this wonderful opportunity together. So there is a more tangible goal, which is what I wrote on the slide as the primary objective. So a more tangible goal, a primary objective, is that we need to prepare for the exam, right? And of course, I don't have to remind you, I am not grading your exam. So in an important sense, we are in this together. And a very important idea in our course is going to be, broadly speaking, social contract, right? This idea that somehow there's a commonality of interest between individuals, and it's possible, people like Rousseau would say, that you can have like not a zero-sum game, right? Not a prisoner's dilemma game, but a cooperative game, right? Describe politics as a cooperative game, this win-win. And in this sense, I feel that you and me, we are on the same side of the barricades. So hopefully this is going to be a win-win situation, because I want to learn political philosophy because I enjoy it. Well, also it's my profession, also it's my job, but no point denying it. I'm incredibly passionate about political philosophy. But at the same time, so I am interested in teaching this course as best I can. I suppose most important because I just find this tremendously interesting and also important and relevant. I find these questions important. And you are trying to prepare for the exam. And hopefully, as far as I can see, our goals in this sense are united. We're moving in the same direction. So let's say me and you. So I am trying to learn political philosophy. You are maybe also trying to learn political philosophy, but also you are trying to prepare for the exam, which is something that all of you hopefully are interested in, right? And in general, I think that these two goals are very well aligned, and I will definitely try my best to make sure that everything we do in this course helps you prepare for the exam one way or another. We don't need to decide between the ultimate goal and the primary objective. I think that at the end of the day, within the structure of the course, these goals work together, and which is why I think I'm very lucky and. Praise to Jupiter that we have this wonderful course and we have this wonderful opportunity to learn this stuff together. Anyway, yeah, I suppose I should maybe mention this also because I'm uploading this to YouTube. Why am I uploading this to YouTube, right? Well, first of all, because during the quarantine, this is by far the easiest way for me to make sure that the lecture is not lost, right? But also, you see, when I am talking, so to speak, urbi et orbi, right? When I'm talking potentially to the whole world, this also forces me to try my best to give the most coherent lecture possible. And again, I feel or I hope that there's a certain win-win, not just between you and me, but you see, again, we're going to talk about these ideas of brotherhood of all people, especially with Karl Marx, communism. To me, what we're doing right here, or at least what I'm doing, is a little bit, at least to some extent, an expression of what Marx means by communism, right? So people, maybe, who knows, but maybe somebody is going to find this on YouTube and is going to watch these videos and find them helpful or interesting or engaging, right? So this is going to be beneficial to them. Hopefully, I'm trying my best to make sure that this is going to be beneficial. But on the other hand, this also pushes me to excel. This pushes me, to the best of my ability, right? This pushes me to try to give the best possible lecture. So in this as well, I see this win-win situation. Again, should I be spending so much time talking about this in the first class? I think, yes, this is justified because you will see throughout the course, basically everything we're going to be talking about, right? This question of alignment of interests of individuals and society is going to be front and center. We're going to be returning back to this over and over and over again. For example, when Rousseau is going to talk about the general will. Anyway, I don't want to bore you too much with this. We'll have a chance to get back to this at a later point. So let me go back slightly, to bureaucracy. So exam with a question mark because we do not know what the format of the exam is going to be. I think officially the quarantine has to be in place at least until February, and who knows how the vaccination is going to go. I have a slight hope that maybe we will be back in classrooms by the end of the year, or maybe the exams are going to be in class in the summer. It's hard to say, and well, actually, no, I should say it's impossible to predict. We can make some try to make some educated guesses, but as far as I know, we don't yet have any this has not been settled yet. By the way, colleagues, if any of you get the news about what the format of the exam is going to be, please let me know immediately. Again, you and me, we are in a similar situation. We're going to get the news at the same time because this is what the administration has to decide. I don't decide this, you don't decide this. So we do not know the format of the exam, which is kind of the format, whether it's going to be online or whether it's going to be in person. But we know the format of the exam. The format of the exam is going to be three. Well, you know the format, hopefully, right? So we have 3 hours, 3 questions, three thinkers. Well, out of a choice of 6, and the exams from past years are available online. I'm going to talk about this in a bit. And this is why, again, I think from the very beginning we need to focus on we have to keep the exam in mind, and we have to keep the format of the exam in mind from the very beginning of the course, right? And well, there are many reasons I talk about this. Well, again, one reason is that only about 5%, sometimes less, only about 5% of students get first-class honors, which is what we need to try to to aim for, hopefully. And I don't know. This year, I am really hoping that there's going to be at least 10 people, maybe 15 people who should get the first class honors. If you don't get first class honors, I would consider this to be a failure, maybe on my part, or some other. I mean, it will call for an explanation. Approximately 10, 15 people, because I know you guys, right? I think, in my own subjective opinion, have the prerequisite skills, what it takes to get the first class honor. But it's not easy. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy for any of you, right? Because basically what we want is independence of mind. And this is not exactly what the university prepares us for in general, right? The courses that you have taken, for example, the course with me last year, was much less about the independence of mind. And this year, I think, well, I don't want to say I think, this is an important objective for us, is to try, for me and for the course in general, for the arrangement of the course in general, to try to encourage you to be independent researchers and to take initiative into your own hands. Now, this is important for a couple of reasons. Well, I suppose the most, okay, again, there's the bureaucratic reason and then there's the metaphysical reason. The metaphysical reason is simple. I have my biases, okay? When I open the text, and I've spent a lot of time with the text that we're going to be reading this year, I have my biases. I have my own way of looking at those texts. And this way might not necessarily be the best or the most productive way to approach the philosophers. Because who knows, again, this is my biases. I am coming from a particular perspective. So I think it's very valuable for you to be able to think outside the box. And by the way, this is hopefully you will learn from me, but I hopefully also will learn from you. This is how I progress as a researcher in my own right? By encouraging and allowing the students to challenge my point of view. Again, these texts have had, like Hobbes' Leviathan, for example, or John Stuart Mill's On Liberty. These texts have a history of being interpreted in radically different ways. And again, this is what fulfills me. This is my professional ambition, to try to understand these texts better. So I need to encourage you to disagree with my position. This is the ultimate metaphysical reason. But the bureaucratic reason is that when the graders, the examiners, are going to grade your exam, which is not going to be me, I remind you, right? They are definitely going to look for originality in your answers. So if you want to get this first class honor, right, you need to be able to show not just the knowledge, but also the critical thinking, also the independence, also the originality. So it is very important. Again, it's very important that you take initiative into your own hands from the very beginning. This is what I'm driving at. And maybe immediately, I suppose I could talk about this right now when we talk about the materials, right? So there's a certain hierarchy of the materials. So we all begin with a study guide. The study guide is fairly clear, fairly concise, but the study guide only gets us so far, right? So you will need to reread. You will read the study guide first in January, and then you will return back to the study guide maybe in March or in April. And the second and the third time you read the study guide, especially with the benefit of secondary literature, you will see ideas there that you have not seen the first time. So it's going to be very important for us to start with the study guide. In many ways, it's a very important document. And while I'm at it, okay, if we're talking about the study guide, we should also talk about the examiner's commentaries. Examiner's commentaries. So I think it's like this. So both of these are going to be very important. And this is, if you want, this is the basic level. This is the basic minimum level. This is like something that everybody has to be on top of, right? But then and again, depending on your ambition in the course, depending on your command of the English language, this may be harder or easier, this may take you more or less time. But then we move on from the study guide, from these basic issues, then we move on. And the best textbook that I have been able to find throughout the years is a wonderful textbook by George Klosko in 2 volumes, 2012, 2013. We're going to need the second volume, 2013 volume, right? And again, I remind you that we are looking for originality of thought. So it's not like you should just memorize what Klosko says and agree, and agree with everything that Klosko says, right? But it's a good start. It's a good start. So in many ways, like the 2 important stages that you need to look for in this course, the first one is understanding, and the second one is developing your own critical, independent perspective on the thinkers that you have hopefully understood, right? So yeah, so first study guide, then Klosko. Then I would say we need to read the chapters from Boucher-Kelly. Sometimes the chapters are going to be simple. The chapter on Rousseau is very straightforward. The chapter on Locke, I think, is also quite good. But some chapters are going to be hard. The chapter on Hobbes, for example, in Boucher-Kelly is very hard. The chapter on Hegel is extremely hard, right? So it's going to depend. But I think that this needs to be the third text that we tackle. Then I have this in square brackets. What about my lectures? So my lectures are available on this channel. Right now. You can go and watch my lecture on Hobbes or watch my lecture on Rousseau. Obviously, we're going to have more lectures this year, but they're not going to be radically different. I'm going to try to go maybe deeper somewhat, but you already know the perspective I'm coming from. And again, feel free to take a look at the lectures, but always with a question mark, because when you listen to my lectures, you have to remember, again, I'm giving you my own biased perspective, and sometimes my reading of most philosophers, I would say, is very, very idiosyncratic. I feel that my reading of Hobbes is very idiosyncratic. Of Rousseau, of Mill, and also of Marx. So it's like you gotta be careful when you listen to me. I think my reading of Locke is fairly conservative. Not conservative, but fairly straightforward, like everybody, middle of the road. But and Hegel, I try to be as middle of the road as possible. But who knows? Again, so take my lectures always with a grain of salt. Always with a grain of salt. And then after we're done with all of this, well, yeah, so at some point you're going to have to look at the primary source, right? Primary texts, right? And this is a problem, and with 3 question marks, because the primary texts are hard. Now, obviously, you should read them. If you aim for first-class honors, you should read them very carefully, read and reread them. But of course, with the benefit of secondary literature, because oftentimes, in many of the texts, especially if you talk about Hegel or Marx, for example, you will be completely lost without secondary literature. So in many ways, again, there's this constant debate among teachers. I am very squarely on the side of secondary literature. I think it's much more important for you to read and understand the secondary literature than to read primary literature, right? So George Klosko, for example, is writing for modern day students, in the 21st century, students like yourself, right? So he explains things in language which is understandable to you. Now Hobbes is writing to an entirely different audience hundreds of years ago, right? And he has to conceal his religious views, among other things. So it's like reading Hobbes is going to be much harder than reading Klosko. So I think you should start with Klosko, and then with the benefit of some general structure and understanding, you should look deeper into Hobbes. Now, at the end of the day, of course, reading the primary texts is the joy. They are far and away the most interesting, but you cannot just start with the primary text. The primary texts in the history of Western philosophy in general are an acquired taste. You need to develop your ability to read them before you can start reading them and enjoying them. But of course, especially first-class honor students, reading the primary text, reading and rereading the primary text is going to be very important. Like in general, this whole course, again, I keep talking about these 2 objectives. So we need to understand, but also develop critical thinking. So we need to understand. Understand plus develop critical thinking. So critical, original, independent. Okay, so original / independent thought, independent perspective. So these are the two stages, right? These are the two stages. But both of these stages require you to read and reread and reread. The key to success in this course is doing the reading. By the way, I should immediately say, some people hate reading. I hate reading, for example. Sorry. So what I do is I listen to audiobooks. Now, at some point you need to look at the text, and I have all of the texts. Like every second word is underlined with a pen of a different color. So that's important too. That's important too. But sometimes much of my reading, or a huge chunk of my reading, is not actually sitting down with a book, but listening. And if that's not your thing, don't worry about it too much. But I personally, it's like the school of Aristotle was known in ancient times as Parapathetics because they walked, right, while they philosophized, at least according to tradition. And this is how my brain works. In order for me to think clearly, I need to walk. So right now, this very moment, I am giving this lecture. Part of the reason I'm not recording myself is because I need to walk while I speak. And in the confined space of my flat, you would not be able. It's going to be very distracting if you just see me walking up and down the room, right? It's not like we're in the lecture hall. So this is, for me personally, it's very important to walk while I think, while I speak, but also while I read. And the best way to do that is through audiobooks. I recommend that highly. All of the texts. Well, I want to say the primary source, the primary texts, right, are available as audiobooks. And about secondary literature, well, you can use voice generation software. Again, talk to me. Some students in the past year have found this very useful. So voice generation software. So text to speech, right? Text to speech. Maybe this sounds mad to you, but I read many of them, most of the text like this, and I find this very helpful. Okay. So there's the primary text, and then so if the study guide and examiner commentaries is the basics, and students who are struggling in this course will spend a disproportionate amount of time on this first part here. But some of you are going to go through the study guide, through Klosko, Bausch-Kelly, etc., and even through the primary sources. But this will not be enough, right? Because you want first-class honors. You want to deepen your understanding. And I don't want to talk about this right now, but there's a reading list ahead of you, right? So, for example, the reader by Stephen Kahn has wonderful introductions. Like every chapter has a short, 3-page introductions. And by the way, when you will be asking yourself, what should your exam look like? Again, partly because one of the key requirements of the exam is originality. I do not just want to distribute, let's say, model answers from past years. Not to mention that I'm not sure if we actually have model answers from past years. Because I feel that this course is a work in progress. I am not sure I have yet seen a student's paper which I sort of agree with completely 100%, and I don't see any defects in it. In this sense, it's better to read the literature, like read chapter in Klosko, than to read answers of students from past years, because they may be subpar or contain mistakes or errors or something like that, right? But what I was saying is that in Stephen Kahn's reader, you can see the introductions. And the introductions are not exactly 100% what you need to reproduce in the exam, but they are in a similar spirit. You will see the thinkers, the philosophers, give a brief overview of the thought of a particular thinker, of Hobbes or of Hegel, raise some issues, propose some solutions, right? And you can get a feel for what that looks like. Now, in general, they're interesting, but they're not the first thing that you need to begin with. But they're there, right? So I'm talking about introductions to the excerpts from the primary texts in the Stephen Kahn's reader, right? So the introduction to Hobbes is written by Jean Hampton. You will learn this name. It's a very important name. She's a top scholar in the field. Introduction to Locke, I think, is written by Jeremy Waldron. Introduction to Hegel by Stephen Smith, some of you know Stephen Smith for his wonderful lectures from the Yale University, available online, right? Well, you get the point, you get the point. And also there's the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. There's Cambridge University Press, publishes all sorts of wonderful books. There are Cambridge Companions. There are also this Cambridge Blue Book series, edited by Quentin Skinner and Raymond Goyce, I think, right? And in the Cambridge Blue Book edition of the text that we're going to be reading, there are wonderful editors' introductions. You know, we'll talk about this at a later point. Although maybe I should write this. So editors' introduction. So all of these are very good, and you know, we'll get to them. So basically, looking at this slide, this is a very important takeaway point. And again, today in the seminars, this is probably what I should focus on. This is probably number one thing I should say. This is probably what I should begin my class with, right? I want to encourage you to take initiative in your own hands. Look, this is a long reading list, and you have different level of skill, different level of ability, different level of command of the English language, right? Different level of motivation, different goals in life, who knows, right? So it's going to be hard for us to synchronize our efforts perfectly, right? So what I want you to take initiative, and if you can, feel free to read ahead, right? Sort of, if the study guide is easy, okay, excellent, go read Klosko. You finished with Klosko, go read something else, right? So I want to encourage students who are ambitious and who want to get first-class honors to read ahead. Everything is available right now. Like, you know, you don't need my lectures, you don't need my seminars. Go read, right? No, but once you read, when you will start reading, you will get questions, you will get problems, and come with these problems to the seminars. Come with these problems to the lectures, right? This is what's going to make our time together productive. I want to encourage you to be proactive, to again, to try to rush ahead of the train. This is what's gonna you know, make this course a success. Hopefully. Okay. So potentially there's a million other things I wanted to say, but I suppose this is the most important one. So I guess let me pause here. So colleagues, thank you very much. I hope you found this instructive. If you have any questions, definitely do ask them in the seminars. And by the way, if any of the first-year students are listening to this and you have questions, also feel free to write to me through Microsoft Teams or whatever, right? And you know, so it's a difficult and challenging year. Oh, by the way, yeah, I keep saying, feel free to read ahead, right? Another challenge that we're going to have this year is the quarantine. You know, when we see each other face to face, it's easier for us to get into the proper working mood. But many people right now are locked up in their houses, so I know that it is more challenging for me to do my regular job. You know, it's like, you know, working from home is complicated in all sorts of ways. So this is another reason I want to encourage you to you know, take the initiative into your own hands, right? And so, like, we're gonna have seminars. There's a whole bunch of people. Most people probably, you know, it's like, you know, who has the camera on, whatever, whatnot. So the quarantine gives you extreme opportunity to slack, right? And it's, I think it's impossible, stupid, but also disrespectful and counterproductive for teachers to try to police students, to coerce students into studying. You know, at the end of the day, this is a wonderful course. These are wonderful texts which bring great joy to read and understand and to think about. And these texts which are talking about the issues which are extremely relevant to each and every one, you know, to the lives of each and every one of us, right? So take this joy, take the initiative into your own hands. This is you know, your questions, your decisions, your happiness, and at the end of the day, your grade. Why not, right? So that's the story. That's the story. Anyway, colleagues, I'm looking forward to continuing this discussion in the seminars. I'm looking forward to your questions. And in general, I'm looking forward, and I'm really hoping this is going to be an excellent, productive year for us together. So I'll see you in the seminars. And I think our lecture is going to be on Saturday. So on Saturday, we're probably going to talk about Hobbes. So that's it. So thanks for sticking around. Thanks for your company. It's you know, philosophy Philosophy requires talking to other people. Philosophy requires a dialogue. So, for me, doing philosophy would be impossible without you. So I am deeply grateful, and for you joining me on this journey. And I'll see you in the seminars, and then I'll see you on Saturday in the lecture. So until then, take care. Take care.